Hey everybody, Meriden Gaming here, and it's finally happened. Season Pass number 2 has dropped. New skill trees for all the different Vault Hunters, and we're going to start off with my favorite, Zane. This is going to be the one shot, one kill build. Let's take a look. So, of course, we're going to use the new skill tree. If you're not familiar with it, you get the Mantis Shoulder Cannon. It's kind of like the Predator Cannon, if you're familiar with the Predator series of movies or the Alien vs Predator. It's a really heavy weapon that can do a lot of damage if modded correctly. This is a Mayhem 10 build. It works better when you're in a group because you're really good at dealing with mobs. Like I said, one shot, one kill. But the problem is you can't really deal with the bosses quite as well. You have to position yourself fairly well. And when we go to our gameplay where I'm fighting Captain Trant, I do go down 2 or 3 times. And then I forgot to hit record on the one time I actually defeated him. So it's very much a team build more than a solo build if you're actually trying to go after bosses. So I will preface it with that. And then of course we use my favorite all-rounder mod for the shield to give us that invulnerability from weapons damage. So it works really well together. So first off, basically what this does is it gives you that shoulder-mounted weapon. You get 3 charge starting off, but we have an extra ability that will give us a couple extra charges. Cooldown time of 12 seconds for each charge to recharge, and damage of 14,219 damage. Now, what we're going to do is try to buff this as much as possible and be able to fire as many times as possible. First, we're going to put 2 points into Mana Focus. After activating an action skill, it grants you increased accuracy and handling for a short time. We're going to be using some heavy hitting weapons with this build, and that's basically what allows you to get those headshots and critical shots to take down those enemies quickly. Then we're going to put 3 points into Renegade. After scoring a critical hit, Zane regenerates health for a short time. Due to the shield I'm running, or maybe it's the other mod, the artifact, this really doesn't work all that well. I should put 3 points somewhere else, but I'm not running the exact gear I want to run. But it's very handy if you do have a lot of health. Then we're going to put 5 points into Headsman's Hand. Basically, whenever you get a kill, you get critical hit damage, and this effect stacks twice. So that's what we're trying to focus on, is those critical shots, and that's what allows us to get those one-shot kills. Then we're going to put 5 points into Commitment. Whenever you get a kill, you gain increased gun damage and action skill cooldown rate. That is what gets us off those shots to be able to kill those enemies quickly. Recharge your charges for those shots. Then we're going to put 2 points into Domino Effect. This increases your reload rate or reload speed and fire rate. If you score a critical hit with your action skill, this is doubled. We're going to be using some fairly hard-hitting, slow-firing weapons, so this is very welcome. Although you could probably put some points somewhere else or take some points and put here, depending on what weapons you want to use, because there is no set of weapons, but I do have some suggestions. Then we're going to put 5 points into the Art of War. That's a what's his name? Was it Sun Tzu reference, I believe? Great Chinese general and strategist. Um, After activating an action skill or action skill ability, Zane's next shot fired from his weapon deals increased damage, stacks up to 10 times. This is what gives us that one-shot kill ability. We're basically going to be firing our Mantis Cannon and then shooting them with a heavy damaging sniper rifle to take them down, all those mobs. All right, then we put 3 into Sheer Will. Basically, whenever you basically just gain action skill cooldown rate, and scoring a critical hit will increase this. So once again, cooldown rate, cooldown rate, cooldown rate. We want to be firing our Mantis Cannon as often as possible. And then finally, our man Flint. When you're aiming down the sights, you get bonus damage, and you automatically apply your status effects. So this is great for stacking up those status effects if you swap between weapons, or if you're trying to keep an enemy's shield from regenerating, or a boss, you just aim down your sights with your electrical gun, or your fire proc, and you just keep him from regenerating. So that's really good for those bosses. This is one of those things where you're going to have to, for the bosses, just chip away, chip away, chip away, and use your Mantis Cannon to kind of get those critical hits in if you can. For our augments, we're going to be using the Brain Drain. Whenever Zane uh, kills an enemy with a critical hit from a shoulder cannon, 2 charges are instantly returned. So as long as you're getting those critical hits and killing enemies with your cannon, which is easy to do, as long as you have good aim, you're going to be recharging almost instantly every single time. And then, of course, even if it takes 2 shots, if it takes that second shot, it's going to instantly recharge you. And then we're going to be using Proliferation. Basically, this gives you those extra 2 charges, and you gain increased damage based on the number of charges. So if you have all 5 charges, well, you'll have 4 charges total. That's plus 80% damage on your Mantis Cannon. So that's what gives us the ability to get those one-shot, one kills on those all those mobs, the standard mobs. And then we've got a few other options. I really didn't care for the way I'm trying to run this build. I was trying to get as much damage as possible out of the cannon. But the other ones you have are Colder Shoulder. This basically, you do less damage, but you have a chance to freeze enemies. This would be great if you're running that previous build of mine, that freeze build for Zane. And we could probably work that into it. And we'll work on that next time. Then you've also got Wet Work. Basically, whenever you kill an enemy with a shoulder cannon, that enemy explodes in a puddle. You could probably work this in somehow, but I do like the critical hit to recharge, although we have a lot of cooldown, so it would probably recharge fairly quick. So that's another option instead of the brain drain. And then finally, there is No Way Out. Whenever Zane damages, hold on one second. Whenever Zane damages an enemy with a shoulder cannon, the enemy is pulled towards him. It takes increased damage for a short time. So this works really well if you're using some of those faster firing weapons. And of course, that cooldown rate also helps as well. So that's another option, but not really for the build that we're running. And now we're going to come over to the double agent build or portion of the tree. We're going to be putting 5 points into synchronicity. Whenever one of our Zane's action skills are active, he gains increased gun damage, 20%. So this is mainly when your shield is out. I need to do a little bit more testing to see if you activate your cannon, if this applies to. I'm not sure, since it's an instant activation where all his other skills are duration based. So I think you only get the plus 20%. So you could probably move this elsewhere if you really want. Then we put, I believe it's 5 points into Donnybrook. Basically, whenever you get a kill, you get increased gun damage. This works really well with your one-shot, one kill because you're just sitting there, just going around the battlefield, just one-shot headshotting, people with your Mantis Cannon, then your sniper rifle, then your Mantis Cannon, then your sniper rifle. So it's just building up that damage. So it's really handy. And then we put 1 point into borrowed time just to get your action skill duration up a little bit because we had a free point to basically keep our shield up. You could probably take some points out of here and move them over to this if you want your shield to be out more, but your shield recharges pretty quick. And finally, into our Undercover portion of the build, we put 5 points into Adrenaline. This increases your action skill cooldown rate. That's what gets you those charges faster. 3 points into Hardy Stock to get your max shields up. And then 4 points into Ready for Action to keep your shields recharged, because this works along with a couple of the other skills we have. Then we put 5 points into Brain Freeze. Whenever you're getting those critical hits on enemy, there's a chance they will be slowed. So for those larger badass enemies and stuff, this will help to slow and freeze them. Actually, if you use a freezing weapon of some sort, that would be very handy to work along with some of the other skills. This is another skill where I should probably put this elsewhere because of the equipment I was running to give me, like either resistance to damage or something like that. But I did put 3 points into here. I'd probably swap between these two depending on if you're running the I think it's my artifact that takes me down to 1 health but gives me 100% extra shield. So you really don't need this. You would probably need the stiff upper lip more. Then we put 1 point into futility belt. Basically, you gain resistance to non-elemental damage, so that's kind of a big plus. And then after killing an enemy, all elemental damage taken is converted to non-elemental damage. So as long as you can get those enemy kills, you can be taking quite a bit of reduced damage. Then we put 3 points into Nerves of Steel. Zane gains increased accuracy and handling the longer his shield is full, so it helps you get those, especially when you have your all-arounder barrier up, you can get those really accurate headshots, even if you don't have the most accurate per the stats weapon. And then we put 1 point into Cool, Calm, Collected. You could probably put this elsewhere if you really want to. This basically just helps keep my shield regenerating as long as I'm getting those, hitting those frozen enemies. Like I said, you probably want a cryo weapon of some sort to really gain the max benefit out of this. But this also, if your health and your shields are full, it gives you that action skill cooldown and duration. So this can be a very powerful tool if you do have some good cryo weapons. I didn't really have a good cryo sniper rifle to use along with this, but I'm going to go farm for one for sure to give me that added benefit. And finally, we put 1 point into Confident Competence. So basically, if your shields are active, he gains increased gun damage, which you're going to have your barrier up for a lot of the fighting, and when you don't have your barrier up, you'll probably be taking cover. So you'll basically have an extra 40% damage on your weapons. So that is a great combination along with everything else we're running. All right, now let's go over to the weapons and other mods. The weapons, it's more up to taste. I prefer stuff like this one is what gives me that incredible amount of damage with all those damage buffs. Basically gains 300% increased weapon damage against enemies above 90% health. So this gun is what allows me to get that one-shot headshot damage if I fire with my what do we call it? The Mantis Cannon first at one enemy, and then I pick a different enemy, hit him with this, instant kill. So you're just swapping back and forth between those two options to get those really big heavy kills. Um, the other options, of course, I love my Hellwalker. This does great damage, especially if you do that whole swap between the two, Mantis Cannon and then this. And then also, don't forget that you have that ability. If you're aiming down your sights, you're going to apply the proc. So you can really start chewing through their health really fast with this, although this does so much damage that it's kind of ridiculous. So anyway, and then another option that I found kind of interesting was the Kill-A-Wisp. This worked really well towards the bosses, specifically just because of being able to apply the procs with those ball of energy just running through the enemies. It was procking every single enemy, so it was taking down those shields really well. So this works well for mobs too. Not quite as well as some of the other stuff, but it does work. Um, and then the other option, of course, always love using this thing, the Thunderball Fist. You know me. I love this weapon, especially if you aim down the sights. You're going to be proccing them with the electrical, and then on top of that, you've got the balls of energy coming up and crashing down. And you know what shield I'm using, don't you? Yeah, my typical transformer. Um, This one is not my big heavy one. This one gives me the ability to give that action skill cooldown rate because my charges recharge in about 3 seconds with this. And then I think there's some skills, if I remember correctly, that give you even more if you get a kill. So, recharging your charges every 2 seconds, that's usually about how fast you're gonna shoot once with your Mantis Cannon and then find the next guy, shoot him with a sniper rifle. By the time you find your next target, your charge will be recharged for your Mantis Cannon. So it's a great combination. And of course, you also, if you see that you're going down quite often, you can always go try to find one of those ones that has even more help or capacity. The problem is with this one, it doesn't have the greatest anointed thing, whatever you call it, skill thing. So I opted to try to use this one instead, although I should probably switch when I fight bosses for this. But anyway, then we've got, we want our action skill damage, of course. this is what gives us the ability to get those one-shot kills with the MNTS Cannon. And then, of course, whenever you damage an enemy, you have a chance to activate those kill skills. I mean, who doesn't love this thing? I thought they were going to uh, reduce the effectiveness of this, but maybe that's only on new ones that drop. So hopefully you got one before they just did that last patch. And then as far as the artifact, yeah, see, this is the one where it takes me down to 1 health, gives me 100% shield capacity. What I was more looking at was the elemental resistance and the action skill cooldown rate. You're wanting that action skill cooldown rate to get that increased use of your MNTS Cannon. As far as the grenade goes, since we are using the 2 different skills, you're not going to be throwing grenades, so you want something that has action skill end. I opted for corrosive, just to give me that bonus damage. And I forgot to go over it. Our barrier, we're going to be using the all-rounder mod, of course, so we can pick it up and run around with it, because that's what gives you the mobility, and you can get those headshots because you can sneak around corners and whatnot. And then I was finding this actually still works even when your shield is picked up. So you're going to be staggering those enemies. If they start running towards you, especially those melee enemies, it's going to stagger them and do shock damage. We don't really care so much for the shock, it's the stagger, so that you can back up a little bit more, and then they get staggered again when they approach you. So, and you can also run through enemies and stagger them as you run past. Because you know me, I like to run through some of the spots when I don't feel like fighting all the enemies, so I'm going for a specific boss, so that's a great option. And it helps you keep up with your allies as well. Anyway, let's get to some gameplay. Like I said, I forgot to hit record on the time that I actually did kill Captain Tron on Athenas, because I love uh, testing on Athenas. There's so many different options for enemies, and I mean, you can even one-shot badasses if you've got a couple of the other smaller guys taken out, getting those buffs up, and just go through enemies like butter. It is awesome. But like I said, if you are trying to go for bosses, you really do need to find a couple friends to play with, because this build does not really work well on bosses. Well, at least not Captain Trant. It might work better on some of the other enemies, because the problem is with the mods that I'm running for my whatever you call it, mayhem mode, um, it doesn't work all that well trying to hit his little specialty critical spot. So, but yeah, for mayhem mods, I was going with Galaxy Brain. This makes easier crits for one thing. So this kind of like maximizes the effectiveness of this build. Healing Avenger, Drone Ranger, those are the 2 that I like to use, because some of the other ones have some really big downsides. So that's some of these are the 2 easiest to run with. And then we try to get Holy Crit. So basically this increases your crit damage yet again, but non-critical damage is reduced by 50%. So this is what also made it difficult for me to take down Captain Tron. So I am seeing that now. There's a different one I prefer to run normally, but I can't remember what the name was. Well, here, as long as we don't apply it, we can go through these. Dazed and Infused is kind of annoying. Postmortem. Actually, I think it may be Dazed and Infused. Oh, Buddy System. That's the one, because you can take out that drone fairly easily. It's just really hard to get that specific, those 4 specific things every single time. So I settled for the other. And then also, if you didn't notice, there's another Mayhem level 11. Now it turns off all the modifiers, so you also don't get quite as good of things, but you get those Mayhem 10 weapons. So if you don't want to have to deal with the modifiers, even though you're going to get a few less, really good drops, this may be an easier way to play to get those Mayhem 10 weapons for you, in order to get the better weapons before you start doing the Mayhem 10 to get the better loot. It kind of, it's one of those little half steps almost. Anyway, let's get to the gameplay. Alright, so here we are. We got our sniper rifle out. And look, once I get this down, I mean, look at that, 1 shot, 1 kill. I'm not sure which one if it was my shield or my... Of course, I do have this sped up quite a bit just to get through the gameplay a little bit faster. But we'll get up here. The one problem is that sniper rifle, you have to remember that it doesn't do as much damage after they're below 90% health. Alright, once my shield repairs, I'll run out there closer so I can get those easier shots. He runs around. See, like that, one shot, one kill, one shot with the sniper rifle, shot with the MNTS Cannon, shot with the sniper rifle. I mean, just look at that. I mean, you're just taking down those enemies. I was looking for some ammo. Oh, see, look at that. Just one shot, one kill yet again. That's one problem. I do need a corrosive weapon. I did not equip one. But if you kill off all the enemies, those drones will disappear. This guy will take me a little bit longer just because it is harder to get that. Because of the big head, the hitbox is different. And this was before I remembered that you could aim down the sights to apply things to them. I still have the ion cannon. But since I'm aiming down the sights, it procs. Yeah, so these kinds of guys will take longer. And see, now I remembered I could use the aim down the sights. Alright, get our sniper rifle back out and start taking out these guys. Look at that, one shot. And that was the rest of the enemies. But yeah, that's why I like this. I mean, those smaller enemies, it's just one shot. You know, just alternating back and forth. Granted, that's because the whole 90% damage. Okay, so there's going to be a few different clips of me fighting Trant mixed together. See, this is when it's all about placement. And then, see, look, he turned his back so I could get those criticals. And then, trying to keep that proc on him. Just aiming down the sides, keeping the proc on. But see, look, that's actually taking down his shields. When he turns his back, it was working pretty well. This is going to be one of the more difficult bosses for this build. Just trying to get to my shotgun to apply the proc and keep him burning. This was the actual time that I did end up killing him, and I did collect the last 30 seconds because I'm able to hit a button and record. So this was me trying to get the full fight, but I'll end up dying. But see, this is the one where it procs because we aim down the sights with our Will-O-Wisp. And if it hits a wall, it creates ball lightning that attacks enemies anywhere near it. You always want to have your shield out if you can get it. You just sit there and alternate between the two. The problem is, I kept getting overwhelmed by the smaller enemies, and then he would do something like that with that big fire hit, and it would take me down. Or the whatever pool of fire, that's what kept getting me. Because even though I have elemental resistance, yeah, the Will-O-Wisp is pretty fun, but I still like my Thunderball Fist. But yeah, you just gotta keep moving, hit those enemies hard. Yeah, I think I'm about to go down on this one. Oh, nope, I got him. Yeah, this thing does like, what, 200,000 damage. It's ridiculous for that Hellwalker. You want to try to get the one that's 20,000 times 10 if you can. I don't remember what boss I killed to get it. Alright everybody, well I hope you enjoyed the build and enjoyed the gameplay. This one was a really fun build for me, at least playing with it. I don't know what it is about getting those one-shot headshots that is so fun in this game. Because it always seemed like, you know, it was Moe's or it was Um, I can't even think of her name. The Siren. Um, Amara, whichever. You know what I'm talking about. It always seemed like they're the ones that got those really big damaging builds, but I like the ability of being able to take stuff out myself as Zane, just because he is one of my favorites. Anyway, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave any comments on builds you want to see, or suggestions to improve upon my builds. I always love, seeing from different points of view. And anyway, this Meriden Gaming, and I'll see you in the wasteland.